All right. Ian Birkby is the founder and the CEO of the AZO Network, AZO for everybody down under. And today we're going to talk about the use of a custom GPT as a resource for customers or readers. So first of all, Ian, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, Chris.
And for people who might not be familiar, describe the network for the folks and the kinds of content you publish and your business model.
Sure, happy to do that. Maybe just go back a little bit and to give you the context. So I'm a material scientist. I was heavily involved in the UK in a business that made advanced ceramics. And I realized that with regards to a lot of new technologies, particularly advanced materials, you had to educate the end users, the designers, scientists, engineers, before you could sell to them. So I'm going back to the sort of early 2000s, and that's how, when I came to live in Australia, set up the business that's now AZO Network. So it was all about sharing science with people who make a difference. That was our initial mantra, and it's still the same one today. So how we make a living is effectively we work with the suppliers of scientific equipment, analysis equipment, advanced materials, related services, and we help to amplify their message online, whether it's via the written word, whether it's via case studies, whether it's interviews, equally is it video interviews. And we do this across, we've got about 14 different websites now that operate in materials, nanotech, life sciences, medical, etc., etc. And depending on the sort of the time of the year, etc., we're currently batting on around about 90 to 100 million unique visitors a year. And we have a subscriber base of over 1 million people who are interested in commercial sciences, how I would describe it. So hopefully that gives a reasonable outline.
Yeah, that's perfect. So the thing we want to talk about today in terms of educating users of equipment in any of those networks or across your networks revolves around AI, something we're all interested in these days. So you recently built a vertical solution using a GPT to curate the content on your site and help visitors answer those questions. So describe Athena and what it does and what it was like to build it, what it took to put that together.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting, exciting journey. I remember first getting involved with OpenAI back in November 22, and it's been a full-on journey from there to where we are now. So I think the first thing that's probably worth bringing to mind is, why did we do it? We recognized that we were sat on top of a lot of commercial scientific content, a lot of it encyclopedic, long-lasting content, some of it news-related, relatively shorter interest level of duration. So we knew that we'd got, and I think it was getting on for 1 million pieces of content that we had available. We also thought we had the smarts within our development team to be able to take that content and put an AI solution on top of it. And we called it Athena because it's Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom, and AZO Network or AZO Network. So that's the reason why we started it. And I'm pleased to say we got there. It took us probably 9 months to a year to get to the point of having a respectable product. And it's not an insignificant or trivial activity. There are a lot of sort of complications that revolve around what format is your data in? Where does your data reside? How can you interface that data with a large language model responsibly, so that you're not giving away all of your data? And can you build something that's going to work? The other point that I would make, and why we went down this route, was we could see that a lot of the big players in the space, the ChatGPTs, the Anthropics, etc., their models will still smash together content from all over the internet. I think somebody the other day described it as some of these LLMs are like very lossy compression algorithms for the internet. So I think
That's
that's I
probably pretty good.
think I think I stole that from the guy who heads up Powo, who used to be is the CEO of Quora. So we recognised that we could do all of this AI bit, but within a walled garden where all of the content had been approved, edited. It was quality content. It had got a stamp of quality human being all across it. So we recognised there was probably an opportunity for doing that. So that's what we did. I'm pleased to say we've managed to get it out there. We've got it operating on our websites now, and we also have a GPT in the GPT store as well. And although I'm slightly biased, it does work pretty well. I'm quite proud of it. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's an amazing undertaking. And as you point out right there, I mean, just starting with content that's been vetted by humans already, it's been reviewed. There's some authority behind that, as opposed to scraping everything that mentions a certain device anywhere is
Yeah.
useful. So who knows where that all comes from on the outside. Then you mentioned a little bit, but I am curious if you want to talk about just the challenge of, like, as you say, getting your data together. I mean, I don't know how your content is stored on your site before this, but when you have 1 million documents, essentially, to categorize those and by not only type, but context or, topic.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you probably won't be surprised to hear, Chris, that like most entrepreneurs, I'm not a tech expert, but I sort of know what hopefully business is looking for. So
I was going to say, this is probably, I know this isn't your job, but I want to hear about it anyway.
I, yeah, I'm going to use the defence of that's way above my pay grade to sort of dive into the details. However, having said that, there are quite a few changes to database structures that are required, cleaning your data, pulling out elements of the data that are going to be superfluous. We're already now actually working on version 2 of Athena, where we are like lots of other businesses. We're going to be looking at a sort of a different approach where we build in, many more levels of quality into the chatbot experience, so that it's asking itself questions, it's reviewing its answers, and it's iterating on that sort of basis. So it's, this field is moving at the speed of light in terms of the technology development, and it is very hard to stay on top of it. And I think there's perhaps an interesting point there. I think you have to sort of work out how is this whole ecosystem stratified. So at the top, you've got the big tech behemoths, the OpenAIs, the Microsoft, the Google, Gemini, etc. You've then got underneath that layer, you've got people like ourselves and maybe other big information providers who have got big silos of content, but they're trying to make more sense out of it, so they get more engagement from their readership. And so we're having to go into a level of sophistication that means we can develop very specific LLMs that are really good at a particular purpose. General LLMs, if I'm going to exaggerate, they're a mile wide and a few inches deep. We're trying to be, maybe 12 inches wide, but 3 foot deep, if I can use those analogies. And so you are looking at, training your models very, very specifically on your content sets. And that's very different to what somebody in, say, for example, the legal profession might be doing with their type of data sets. And then the sort of the third layer of that stratification would be individual companies and organizations who are probably going to be dipping the toe into the AI space, but it's probably going to be covered by commoditized tools that they can plug in and play with, and it'll operate on that basis. So I think that's how it looks at the moment. whether it's going to be the same tomorrow, who knows?
All right, so talk a little bit about what the output of this looks like. If I go in and I'm looking for some information on a mass spec, or I'm doing proteomics, what am I going to get from your vertical solution that's different than me just asking ChatGPT?
Sure. So you're looking with ChatGPT, you're going across the whole of the internet, and it's going to try and smash together ideas from a variety of different sources. Some of them will be good, some of them may not be as good. With with Athena, you've always got information that comes from a trusted source, and the other big difference is we are quite happy to provide all of the references, whether that's 3 references or 10 references, and one click and you're through to the source documentation, no logins or paywalls or anything like that. So that's really the significant difference, Chris, and it revolves around this trust element. You know, how much can you trust the source that's providing the answers for you?
Yeah, that's important. So to me, after we had this conversation a little bit earlier, it seems like a new kind of customer journey. That's I'm sure Google's a little concerned about this. That now people go right to the source or a trusted source, and they just start asking questions, which to some degree they're going to have to learn how to do. So how are you thinking about the path to adopting this new technology?
Yeah, great question. I think people have to start to make that mind shift that it's not just an extended form of search. It actually is really good at doing tasks for you. So you could ask it, for example, summarize the key issues in genomics, and then it will come back and it will give you a summary of that. It'll surface quite a lot of data that's related to that particular topic. You can then start to dive in deeper, and you can say, summarize cell counting technology and provide me with 3 of the key manufacturers of related equipment. So you can ask that sort of question, and it will run off and do which previously would have taken you maybe 30 minutes to an hour. It'll come back and it'll do that within 30 seconds. And then you can start to dive in even further and ask specifically about Beckman Coulter's cell counter or whoever else you might be interested in. So it's really good for that task orientated activity. It's okay for searching, but that's not its primary function. So that's where, you know, there's still a challenge out there to get people to understand that that's the best use case for it. Search is somewhat different. Having said that, and you touched on the Google scenario, that's really quite interesting. I'm not sure they're absolutely certain which direction they want to take with their search generated experience. You know, for the last 15, 20 years, they've made a lot of money out of those 10 blue links and the ads that go alongside it. You know, so if they're going to move away from that model, they're going to want to be certain that they're providing something that's also cash generative. And I think, you know, from the perspective of information providers, whether it's businesses like ours or even manufacturers, you know, are we going to be happy about the AI sucking up all our information and answering that question directly without any reciprocal form of traffic coming through to ourselves or even the original manufacturer? So there's quite a few, you know, questions to be answered there, and some of them are going to be answered in New York courtrooms, and some of them are going to be answered over a table with a discussion. So.
Yeah, indeed. I hadn't even thought of that. But I mean, if you think about Google's model and advertising, you know, monetizing advertising links, are we going to have to pay to get our sites listed on Google so that they can use our content to help? Or any number of possibilities about how they will make money and what it would cost the rest of us to get what was essentially free access to information.
Yeah, it's it's a very big point, and it sort of exercises my mind quite extensively. I can tell you that there was some work done by Oxford University and Reuters at the end of last year, where they looked at how many big information providers are blocking the AI crawlers. And it is, depending on which country you're in, but sort of Northern Hemisphere, you're looking around about 60% of, The Guardian, Bloomberg, big players like that, who are not letting the chatbots get access to their content. So, if you are using ChatGPT, you're not going to find the latest Guardian story on XYZ. So I think there's,
Right.
going to be a shift in that direction as well. So.
Yeah, that's the other side of that whole equation. You mentioned to me in our previous conversation how someone mentioned that the convergence of all these different AIs trained on overlapping data and what that might mean for sort of homogenizing what we have access to. What do you think that means for human creativity and where the value that every one of us humans can put into whatever we're working on in business?
Yeah, it's again, you're into pretty big philosophical topics here now. Um, I think, what things do we know? Well, we do know that the tech behemoths, they've got the algorithms. So they've nailed down the different LLM models, and they are all subtly different in various shapes and forms. They can ingest larger amounts of data. I forget which one it is now, but the whole works of Harry Potter can be ingested in as a prompt. So that they're all working towards bigger data sets being able to be uploaded, and they're all working on largely the same tech stack in terms of NVIDIA's GPUs, and they're all using increasing amounts of energy to crunch all of these numbers to generate the answers. So there is a logic to say that at that very big boy level or big girl level, they are going to end up with very similar sort of products. Some will be slightly better than others, but you can see where I'm going. If you've got enough money, you're probably going to be able to catch up to the other guys. So that's where I see it at the top level. Where I see a great opportunity is in the sort of the vertical AI segment, where people become really good in very specific sectors, and they have AI models that really work well in that particular sector. So I still see that there's a role for human intelligence in terms of building those models. But I guess the final point would be, several commentators have said, Elon Musk came out and said, oh, it's, within a year, these models are going to be more intelligent than a human. And and other people said, well, I bet you $1 million they're not. And he hasn't taken the bet up yet, to my knowledge. So maybe that's where he stands. And some of the criticism is, yes, they are very good at crunching large data sets and generating answers, but they don't have emotional intelligence. Now, you might say, well, you've probably worked with people where you might have thought, I wish they didn't have any emotional intelligence, but it's so that's definitely an area where, the human has still got a role. I think in that, very pure form of creativity, seeing what nobody else has seen before and thinking something different, that I still think there's mileage in humans having a role to play there. However, there's probably 80% of the drudgery related tasks that we all face that are going to end up sitting on the desk of AI. So,
Yeah, it makes total sense. What have I missed? What have we not talked about that is relevant to this vertical AI, or where do you think content curation is going? Anything around that?
I think there is going to continue to be a role for relevant, timely, unique content. I still firmly believe that. And that's also an area where I think the humans have still got a role to play. I think businesses, and we work with lots of companies from $1 billion market cap businesses through to 20, 30 person businesses who make a particular scientific instrument, and they are going to have to get with the program. The businesses that are going to lose out are the ones that don't embrace the AI opportunity, but exaggerating to make a point, they sit there, saying that there's still a future for horse and carts when Henry Ford's started to make cars. So that's going to be a challenge all businesses are going to have to wrestle with. And some of it is here right now. Only last night I was having a meeting with our development team, and one of our developers said to me, I couldn't believe how much code I generated last Friday. And he was using AI tools to help him along the way. So, that's just one tiny example of efficiencies within businesses. And any business out there, you just can't afford to let that slip by. You need to be looking at it. So.
Fascinating. Ian Birkby, thank you so much for sharing your advances in using a vertical GPT and just your insights on where marketing and content are going. So thanks so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Chris. So great to chat.
Likewise. Okay.